Although he never met the legendary Jimmie Rodgers, Henry Young of Bakersfield, a retired train engineer, feels the singer-composer had a personal effect on his life.
He sort of helped out his happy-go-lucky style of singing, sort of helped in the Depression. Yes, it did. I mean, we sort of looked forward to it, and he made you feel like everything's going to be a little better just around the corner. And I guess it was.
It wasn't until he began hosting a one-hour radio program which featured folk singers recorded between 1923 and 1948 that Young realized that many of his listeners felt pretty much the same way about Jimmie Rodgers. Young felt he had the support he needed to launch a campaign to have the late country music artist commemorated through a stamp from the U.S. Postal Service. It took nearly 7 years, but last month Young was notified that a stamp would be issued next year.
I never had any doubt but what the stamp would be someday issued. I felt it would, but really I didn't think I'd ever live to see it. I was glad to see it. In fact, they asked me to come back to Meridian to the Jimmie Rodgers Memorial Festival, and Congressman Montgomery flew down from Washington, and he had me to go on the stage with him and made the announcement that the Postmaster General was going to issue the stamp next year.
On August 4th, it will be 50 years since Rodgers first stepped into a recording studio. Young has that recording along with every record Rodgers made. Jimmie Rodgers, who is referred to as the father of country and western music, was active for less than 6 years before succumbing to tuberculosis in 1933. The singing brakeman, as he was known because of his work in the railroad industry, will not only live on through his music, but will now join other famous Americans honored through a commemorative stamp.
I'm 1,000 miles away from home, just waiting for a train.
For the news, this is Louis Vega.
More than 800 persons jammed into an auditorium for the ceremony while another crowd waited outside to take part in the day of festivities at Highland Park, site of the Jimmie Rodgers Museum. Anita Rodgers Court, daughter of the man who was called the Singing Brakeman, was among those on hand for the ceremony. The Assistant Postmaster General, Jim Finch, said the commemorative stamp was what he termed a signal tribute to Rodgers' life and his music.
The issuance of a commemorative stamp to commemorate the works or the life of an individual is a very, very important and significant honor. The Postal Service, as you might imagine, receives literally thousands of requests each and every year for commemorative stamps to honor people, to honor events, to honor historic places. It's obviously impossible to accede to all of those requests, many of which are very meritorious. The fact that we're here today to issue a commemorative stamp in honor of Jimmie Rodgers is indeed a signal tribute to his life and to his music.
It was a touching moment for Mrs. Anita Rodgers Court, the daughter of the late singer.
First, I would I want to thank God for this day. Secondly, here goes my little speech, so I got to read it. That's it. I just want to express my appreciation and thanks to Henry Young for making this day possible. He not only requested the stamp, he has worked hard and faithful for its successful conclusion for several years, a lot of years. Without his efforts, there would be no stamp. Very definitely, there would not have been a stamp without Mr. Henry Young's efforts. Now then, and I want him to know what a good thing he has done, and I just know that my dad and mother would have been real proud.
Also present today was Henry Young of Temple, Texas, who made the original request for the Rodgers stamp.
You know, I was 19 years old when the Depression struck in 1929. Times were hard, and most everybody was declining, including singers and entertainers. But there was one young singer by the name of Jimmie Rodgers who was dying from tuberculosis, who just seemed to get bigger and bigger and bigger when there was no money, no jobs, no nothing. But he did have a message that people could identify with, and everybody could identify with him, and they did. He seemed to be able to, in other words, he had been there before us, and he understood what we felt.